Biographies for Samantha out of whole cloth and old bias. Through it all, she kept repeating the same sentence in interviews, each time like a metronome: "I was buying cereal." That sentence did not de-escalate the union. By late afternoon, Assistant U.S. Attorney Patricia Williams scheduled a meeting. "We're eyeing 18 U.S.C. Section 242 for Wade. If pattern evidence holds, we climb the ladder." "Pattern," Santos echoed, arriving with a binder that looked like regret bound in 3 rings. "It holds." She laid out complaint maps, timestamps, names, normal afternoons turned sideways. The incidents didn't make a line, they made a web. Torres stared at the web and saw the shape of a failure, not one officer, but a habitus, reinforced by training that mistook suspicion for strategy and proximity for proof. That night, alone in a kitchen that smelled like coffee gone cold, Torres texted Sam, "Need to talk. This is bigger than Wade." They met at a quiet booth, both women wearing exhaustion like a second blazer. "Sam," Torres began, throat tight, "I signed off on parts of the training that bent us here. Pressure from City Hall. Consultants with shiny binders. I told myself outcomes justified language. I was wrong." Samantha listened. The betrayal had edges, but so did the honesty. She put a palm on the table, steady. "Then help cut it out. Root and branch." "On the record," Torres said. "Under oath." "Under lights," Samantha added. "Cameras on. No more quiet fixes." They didn't toast. They started a list. Mini cliffhanger: DOJ requests all academy curricula for 5 years. What they find is not a few bad paragraphs, it's a blueprint. Weeks later the federal conference room was a collage of euphemism. Urban patrol strategies. High crime demographic indicators. Elevated caution profiles. Samantha thumbed through modules and felt heat behind her eyes. Scenarios that coded fear as best practice. Case studies that defaulted Black to suspect, Latino to gang adjacent, neighborhood to risk tier. Deputy Assistant AG Patricia Williams tapped a paragraph. "This line tells rookies to treat nonconforming presence as a pretext for stop and question." "Nonconforming to what?" Samantha asked, then answered herself. "The zip code." 15 officers from Wade's academy cohort were quietly interviewed. 9 admitted the curriculum made pattern recognition a god, bias its altar. "You can't say race," one shrugged, "so they say indicators." Georgetown's Dr. Jennifer Hayes wrote it plainer: the curriculum systematically conditions racialized threat perception under color of tactical prudence. Torres read the report twice. On the second read she drafted her resignation letter and her witness statement. "Are you sure?" Samantha asked. "I can't reform this while pretending I didn't help build it," Torres replied. "I'll testify, for the prosecution." The union called the report academic politicking. City Hall called for healing conversations. The community called it what their bodies already knew: proof. That same week, Rodriguez walked in with something that smelled like dynamite: "Wade wants a deal." "Absolutely not," Samantha said automatically, the muscle memory still fresh on her sternum. "Full confession," Rodriguez continued, "and cooperation. He claims an informal network, 15 officers across 4 districts swapping tactics on how to harass without paper trails. He kept recordings." Recordings? Paranoid insurance. Off-duty bars. Locker rooms. Car cams accidentally left running. Samantha stared at the ceiling tile, counted perforations, then counted stakes. One man's deserved maximum versus a system's required minimums. Justice that feels good versus justice that works. She set conditions. Not lenient, leveraged. Public admission: not mistakes were made, but I racially profiled. By name. Service, not penance: mandatory talks at academies nationwide explaining how he became what he became, and how not to. Victim fund: civil settlement routed to legal aid for those without badges or platforms. Unusual, AUSA Williams said, but executable. Wade cried when he heard them. Samantha didn't need the tears. She needed the notebook he slid across the table, dates, stops, phrases used like batons. 6 months post-serial, Judge Patricia Morrison asked the simple, scalding question, "Mr. Wade, say aloud what you did." He did. On the record. I pointed a gun at DEA Special Agent Samantha Mitchell without cause, because I believed a black woman didn't belong in a white neighborhood. I violated her rights. Sentence, 15 months county, 5 years supervised, 2,000 hours talking to cadets about the abyss he mistook for a staircase. Permanent bar from law enforcement. Counseling mandated. Outside, Williams briefed Samantha. Wade's testimony plus the notebook cracked open 52 officers. 18 terminated. 7 federally charged. 29 facing discipline. The consent decree drafts tonight, psychological screening overhauled, curriculum rewritten, community oversight with subpoena power, body cams mandatory, stop data public monthly. Torres, no longer in uniform, waited at the plaza edge. "The council asked me to chair the new civilian board," she said softly. "I told them only if you'll serve with me." Samantha looked past her at the courthouse steps where high schoolers were taking selfies with signs that read "We belong everywhere." She thought of the boy on the video, the grandmother on the curb, the father on the roadside shoulder, the mother in the cereal aisle who shielded a toddler from a gun that should never have risen. "I'll serve," Samantha said. "But we won't do ribbon cuttings. We'll do audits." They didn't smile for the cameras. They went back inside to initial verbs that would outlast a news cycle. Comment accountability and where you're watching from. Your stories fuel reform. The backlash didn't knock, it kicked the door. By sunrise after sentencing, Samantha's inbox buckled under subject lines that read like threats drafted in a hurry. A burner account posted her neighborhood cross streets with a photo of a front gate that wasn't hers. Another claimed to have her sealed juvenile record, news to the woman who spent study hall writing Fourth Amendment flashcards. Rodriguez looped cyber. They traced the loudest accounts to the same 3 IP blocks in a private forum where avatars traded tactics like baseball cards, flood the comments, flip the narrative, make her the aggressor. The police union held a press conference flanked by flags and indignation. "One incident should not destroy a young officer's life," the spokesperson said, avoiding the word guilty as if it might stain the podium. "Our members are under attack." Samantha watched the clip without pausing. "Accountability isn't an attack," she told the local anchor who called for reaction. "It's a seatbelt. Inconvenient until it saves a life." By noon, a selectively edited body cam video from an unrelated stop hit the feeds. It showed Samantha years earlier on a joint operation perimeter, voice sharp with urgency as she barked commands to secure a scene. The caption did the rest: "DEA agent screams at locals, hypocrite." Context arrived late, as it always does. The full tape showed a shooting suspect in flight and Samantha moving civilians behind cover before bullets could make arguments of their own. But the cut had done its job. The pylon learned a new word: tone. Table. Locker room chatter, Wade recorded. Judge unsealed it this morning. Samantha scanned the lines, each stamped with date and time. Officers swapping techniques like recipes. Ask for ID twice. If they flinch, call it suspicious. Keep the hand near the holster, they'll comply quicker. Jokes about neighborhoods, about names, about fear as leverage. Laughter punctuating bias until it sounded casual. She felt her stomach tighten. This isn't strategy. This is sport. Williams, the prosecutor, nodded grimly. And it's admissible. We'll call it what it is: conspiracy under color of law. The hearing that afternoon was standing room only. Davis sat at the witness table, wrists free but reputation shackled. The leaked slides glowed on courtroom monitors. Williams began methodically: authorship, revision history, initials. Then the recordings. When the first locker room joke played, the room shifted. Nervous coughs, whispered curses, a judge's eyebrow arched like a gavel. Davis leaned into the mic that was out of context. Williams pounced. Out of context how? Out of context that you wrote training that told recruits to see Isaiah's trombone as contraband? Or out of context that you called community complaints background noise? Davis faltered, eyes darting for an ally who wasn't there. Torres stood when called. She faced the judge with a folder in hand, her own memo from 3 years prior. Your Honor, I signed this. I regret it. But this, she pointed to Davis's red-lined slides, this is not mine. This is my negligence rewritten into directives. The courtroom stilled. I am here to correct the record publicly. Policy language I once allowed has been weaponized. That's on me. But what Officer Davis did went further, she institutionalized profiling. It was confession and indictment in one breath. The judge let the silence linger as if to etch it into transcript. Then came Officer Chen. Called reluctantly, she stepped to the witness stand with posture like someone bracing a storm. Chen had mentored Wade in his first weeks, warned him gently about tone, filed quiet notes no one read. What did you see in the locker room? Williams asked. Chen hesitated, then exhaled. I saw jokes I didn't laugh at. I saw stops I didn't agree with. I told myself I was just one officer, I couldn't change culture. But I was wrong. I'm saying it now, we targeted people who looked like Isaiah because the slides told us to, and because our trainers said it out loud. The room buzzed. Admissions like this were rare. Courage, rarer. Samantha caught Chen's eye and gave the smallest nod. Not gratitude, recognition. By evening, headlines carried 3 names, Davis, Torres, Chen. The trainer exposed, the former deputy chief confessing past error, the line officer breaking silence. Together they redrew the line in public view. Back in the federal office, Samantha logged the day in her notes. When a system is sick, the cure is honesty under oath. The decree was no longer rumor, no longer draft, it was ink, sealed by gavel. It mandated that Denver Police Department step out from behind its slogans and live under scrutiny. In the text were timelines, benchmarks, and enforceable clauses, psychological screening redesigned from scratch, academy curricula stripped of their euphemisms and rewritten with input from civil rights scholars, a community oversight board with real subpoena power, monthly publication of every stop, use of force, and complaint outcome. A living record, not an internal memo. Judge Morrison spoke with clipped emphasis when she announced it from the bench, this court will not supervise symbolism. Only substance. The phrase ricocheted across media channels before the echoes even left the marble courtroom. Commentators argued its meaning, politicians tried to spin it, but to Samantha Mitchell, seated in the gallery with her notes open, the meaning was blunt, change had arrived with teeth. She circled the word teeth in her notebook twice. She knew what soft reform looked like, glossy press conferences, pilot programs abandoned when headlines cooled. This wasn't that. This was a binding contract that could be hauled back before a federal judge if deadlines slipped. It was accountability made enforceable. 3 months later, the first quarterly dashboard went live. It didn't read like propaganda. It read like a spreadsheet anyone could browse. Stops had decreased 35% citywide, disproportional stops of minorities dropped even further. Use of force incidents declined by 23%. Complaints still existed, no one pretended they wouldn't, but every single one appeared with a timestamp, status update, and, where possible, a bodycam link. For the first time, citizens didn't need rumors or grainy Facebook posts to know what had happened. They could click a city webpage and see it. Rodriguez leaned over Samantha's shoulder as reporters craned for quotes. You realize this is historic, right? Samantha answered evenly. Historic doesn't mean finished. It means documented. Reporters asked if officers were resisting. The dashboard itself gave the answer. 5 officers disciplined for failing to activate cameras. 2 suspended without pay for manipulating stop codes. 1 dismissed outright for retaliating against a complainant. The Oversight Board, chaired by Rebecca Torres with Samantha serving beside her, published the names without black boxes. Citizens gasped at the transparency, but slowly, gasps turned into habit. Sunlight adjusted the eyes. Torres addressed the press with her usual brevity. "We are not punishing, we are pruning. Growth requires it." The rookie class graduating that spring felt the difference before their badges were pinned. Their academy oath had been rewritten in plain language. No euphemisms about indicators or tiers. No coded references to who belonged where. On graduation day, 32 recruits stood shoulder to shoulder beneath a banner stitched with Isaiah's words, "We belong everywhere." Each recruit signed a pledge as part of the ceremony, not only to uphold law, but to respect the equity of every resident. Parents filmed through tears. Isaiah himself, trombone strap over his shoulder, handed each graduate their certificate. He was no longer just a victim, he was a witness turned symbol. From the bleachers, Samantha watched the line of young officers. She searched their faces, not for perfection, rookies never are, but for clarity. She saw pride that wasn't defensive, but aspirational. For once, the line between right and wrong wasn't clouded by coded slides or locker room jokes. These rookies were stepping into uniforms under a creed written by daylight. After the ceremony, a young officer approached, cap tucked respectfully under his arm. "Agent Mitchell," he said, nerves in his throat, "my father was a cop. He quit 15 years ago. Said the culture was eating him alive. Today I felt like I joined something different. Thank you." Samantha received the gratitude the way she received evidence, carefully, without embellishment. But in her notebook that evening, she wrote a single line: "Sometimes reform is one boy walking home safe. Sometimes it is 32 new officers swearing an oath they can understand." Not everyone celebrated. The police union simmered like a pot that refused to cool. Flyers appeared on windshields near precinct lots: "Reform is restraint. Cops can't act anymore." A radio host sneered at the dashboards, calling them report cards for grown men. Anonymous social media accounts resurfaced with doctored statistics, insisting crime had ballooned. But the numbers told their own story. Homicides dipped slightly. Burglaries flatlined. Citizen satisfaction surveys, often dismissed as fluff, showed a subtle but unmistakable rise in minority neighborhoods, residents reporting they felt safer calling police, safer walking streets that once felt like checkpoints. Samantha expected the backlash. Change with teeth always cuts both ways. She and Torres convened the oversight board weekly, grinding through case audits and data reviews. Rodriguez fed them federal updates. Williams checked compliance clauses like a hawk. Together they built rhythm into reform, knowing momentum could die without muscle. One late night, after a session that stretched past midnight, Torres lingered in the empty boardroom. "Do you think it's sticking?" she asked quietly. Samantha closed her laptop. "I think it's hurting." "That's the first stage of healing." Torres nodded, relief tempered by fatigue. "When I resigned as deputy chief, I thought I was walking away from power. Turns out this seat, at this table, has more." Samantha smiled faintly. "Because it's not power. It's leverage." By the decree's one-year anniversary, the city prepared a progress report. Journalists expected numbers. What they didn't expect was the symbolic program plan for the academy: Samantha Mitchell and Marcus Wade, side by side at a lectern, speaking to cadets about accountability. Wade, stripped of badge forever, sentenced and serving probation, had been fulfilling his mandated community service by talking to classes about his mistakes. The sight of victim and perpetrator speaking together promised to test the city's stomach for mercy alongside justice. Samantha had agreed reluctantly. She still remembered the muzzle flash potential, the weight of fear in the cereal aisle. But she also believed in transparency as cure. And if part of reform was showing rookies not only how the system failed, but how individuals could face consequences and change course, then the sight might be worth the discomfort. As she prepared notes, she wrote one more line under the circled word teeth. Teeth are not just for biting. They are for holding on. The auditorium smelled faintly of polish and coffee, the kind of air that carries nerves. At the front, the academy banner stretched wide: We belong everywhere. Behind the lectern stood two figures who could not have been more different, yet now shared the stage, DEA Special Agent Samantha Mitchell and former Officer Marcus Wade. Cameras whispered in the back rows. Cadets straightened their collars. For a long moment, Samantha let the silence exist, the weight of context filling the room. 1 year since the cereal aisle, 1 year since a gun leveled at her chest had triggered reform that shook a department. Now the city wanted to see what mercy looked like beside justice. Wade spoke first, voice catching. My name is Marcus Wade. I used to wear the badge you're about to put on. And I abused it. His hands gripped the podium as if it were the last stable thing in his life. I saw threat where there was none. I aimed my weapon at a woman who was buying cereal. I profiled her because she was black and I thought that meant she didn't belong. I ruined my career and nearly destroyed a life. If you remember nothing else from me, remember this: the uniform does not give you authority to fear people into silence. It gives you responsibility to keep them safe. If you can't tell the difference, take off the uniform now. The cadets did not clap. They sat still, absorbing. Samantha took her turn. I didn't invite Marcus here to redeem him, she said. I invited him to remind you that every decision you make carries weight you can't take back. The system trained him wrong. He chose wrong. Both truths matter. And both truths can end with accountability. Today, you inherit a department under a federal decree. That means your mistakes won't vanish in file cabinets. They'll live on dashboards, visible to every citizen. Transparency isn't a punishment, it's a promise. She paused, letting eyes meet hers. I was profiled by someone in this uniform. I survived because I had a badge of my own and a phone call to a deputy chief. Many others do not. Your duty is to be the difference between terror and trust. After the ceremony, Samantha walked the halls with Torres. Posters of academy classes from decades past lined the walls. Torres stopped at the newest photo. The rookie class Isaiah had handed certificates. You know, she murmured, I never thought my career would end in resignation. But this, she tapped the frame, this feels more like legacy than rank ever did. Samantha nodded. Legacy isn't what you keep. It's what you leave. The following week, the Oversight Board released the 1-year metrics. They landed like a second verdict. Stops down 38%. Disproportionate minority stops cut nearly in half. Use of force incidents lowest in 15 years. Complaint resolution time reduced from 190 days to 42. Citizens could open a portal and see live updates, no waiting, no spin. The numbers spoke louder than OPDS. Media outlets framed it in headlines: Denver policing after reform, teeth, transparency, trust. Of course, not all voices were celebratory. A union spokesperson appeared on radio: our officers feel paralyzed. They're afraid one wrong move will cost their careers. Samantha responded calmly in an interview: if an officer fears accountability more than misconduct, they misunderstand the badge. And then came the moment Samantha hadn't expected: the return to the cereal aisle. It was an ordinary Saturday. She reached for the same brand of whole wheat cereal, the same shelf, the same humming lights above. A police presence entered her periphery, an officer on community patrol, mid-30s, Hispanic, uniform neat. He noticed her balancing 2 boxes, hesitated as if remembering the story that had saturated national news. Agent Mitchell, he asked softly. Yes. I wanted to say, I'm sorry for what happened here. And thank you for what you did after. My nephew starts the academy next year. He'll inherit something better because you didn't stay silent. Samantha felt a weight ease. The aisle that once reeked of fear now carried a gentler echo. A stranger's apology. A nephew's future. Proof that change, however imperfect, had entered daily life. She placed the cereal in her cart and looked him in the eye. Then make sure he remembers this: authority is not control. It's service. The officer nodded, and for the first time in that aisle, Samantha exhaled without remembering the barrel of a gun. Months later, at a community forum, Isaiah performed with his school band. The trombone he had once feared to carry gleamed under stage lights. His mother recorded proudly, and reporters noted the symbolism, a boy once silenced by profiling now making music loud enough for a city to hear. Rebecca Torres, now head of the oversight board, leaned toward Samantha. We started with fear. We're ending with sound. Samantha smiled faintly. Not ending. Beginning again. The story traveled. Other cities requested Denver's dashboard templates. Federal monitors. The order hit the quiet grocery like a bullet tearing linen. Get on the ground, now. Samantha Mitchell's fingers loosened around the whole wheat box. It thumped to the linoleum, granola flurried like brown snow. The muzzle was already centered on her sternum, safety off, a single breath away from turning a Tuesday into a headline. She raised both hands slowly, palms forward, wrists neutral, voice steady. Officer, there's been a mistake. The name tag said Wade. The eyes said fear wearing bravado. Shut up. Turn around. Hands behind your head. Shoppers scattered. A mother clutched her toddler. The manager half disappeared behind customer service. The fluorescents hummed. Somewhere a refrigerator cycled on, oblivious. Samantha complied, but she counted facts as if they were beads. No radioed stop. No dispatch. No articulable crime. No probable cause. Am I under arrest? She asked. Or being detained for a specific crime? You were acting suspicious, Wade snapped. Moving around too much. Studying things. Samantha nodded toward the shelf. Comparing price per ounce. It's a grocery store. Laughter fluttered from a brave aisle over, then phones rose like steel flowers. Red spread up Wade's neck. Authority, wounded, reached for volume. Faced the shelf. The barrel hovered inches from her shoulder blade. Samantha could hear her own breathing, counted it, slowed it. 12 years DEA. Undercover nights, wiretaps humming like cicadas, cartel safehouses, doors breached at dawn. She had felt fear before, industrial grade and personalized. But the fear here tasted different, domestic, banal, fluorescent. She turned her head just enough to catch his posture in the cereal box reflection. Shaky. Eager. A newly sharpened blade trying to prove it could cut. Officer Wade, she said calmly. I'm going to make a phone call. You're not making any calls. You can watch me dial, she replied, voice now edged with tempered steel. Because this conversation is about to include your deputy chief. Wade scoffed, then hesitated. You think you know the deputy chief? Samantha didn't answer. She thumbed to a contact that had lived near the top of her phone for 8 years. 1 ring. 2. Sam? The voice slid into the cereal aisle like oxygen. Deputy Chief Rebecca Torres. Rebecca, Samantha said levelly, speaker on, phone held high for all to hear. Riverside Market, Cherry Street. I'm okay. One of your officers has his weapon out on me for the crime of buying cereal. For seconds of silence stretched out, then snapped. Torres's tone went from friend concern to command ice. Which officer? Samantha read the badge. Marcus Wade. 4729. I'm en route. Sirens flowered in the distance. The aisle became a theater in the round. Cameras blinked. The gun dipped a centimeter. Keep your hands visible, Wade muttered, certainty leaking. He clicked his radio, voice warbling, Unit 47, situation under control. 1 individual detained. The automatic doors exhaled. Officers Chen and Rodriguez entered, hands near holsters but unthreatening. Behind them came Torres in civilian slacks and the posture of authority that doesn't need decibels. Wade, Torres said, voice clipped. Holster. Now. A beat too long, insubordination on film, then the click of surrender. Torres faced Samantha first. Are you hurt? No. Just detained for line item shopping. Torres pivoted to Wade. Explain the draw. She was acting suspicious, he offered, drowning in the shallow end. Didn't look like she belonged. Phones leaned in as if they could smell the tell. Did she commit a crime? Torres asked. Wade swallowed. No. Probable cause? I believed. That's not probable cause. That's prejudice. Silence held. Samantha felt the air change, like the instant before a summer storm when every leaf braces. Torres's voice turned classroom cold. Tell this store, this city, this camera what was suspicious. Be specific. Moving around. Studying things. You mean shopping? A ripple of laughter, pained, weary. Torres stepped closer, gaze unblinking. Look again. What do you actually see? A black woman. Dark jeans. Navy blazer. Flats that could run or stand. Hands visible. Calm as a surgeon. Wade's shoulders sagged under the weight of his own honesty. I saw someone who didn't belong here. Because? Torres asked. He said it small. Because she's black and this is a white neighborhood. Something exhaled across the crowd, anger, relief, grief, all at once. Torres's next moves were ritual and reckoning. Weapon. On the floor. Clink. Badge. Clink. Radio. Static died. Officer Marcus Wade, Torres declared, loud enough for every lens, suspended effective immediately pending internal affairs. Surrender department property. Report 0800. Wade's hands trembled. Deputy Chief, You drew down on an innocent civilian without cause. Torres turned, voice carrying. On DEA Special Agent Samantha Mitchell, 12 years federal service. The woman who helped me dismantle Valdez. Gasps fractured the aisle. Samantha kept her face still, the way you do when a truth lands and you want the world to focus on the truth, not your reaction to it. Agent Mitchell, Torres asked quietly, do you wish to press charges? Samantha inhaled. She felt the laser side of every stare. The question wasn't just legal, it was civic. It would outlive this store, this day, this city. I need time, she said. But start the paperwork. CTA, if you believe standing up to injustice protects everyone, comment accountability and tell us your country. Samantha watched herself on grainy playback, entry 2:15 p.m., serial aisle 218, approach 219, weapon 2 hours 20 minutes and 47 seconds. 92 seconds from hello to holster snatch. No theft. No concealment. No alarm. Just a rookie's adrenaline and a prejudice with a badge. Special Agent Daniel Rodriguez paused the footage. Deprivation under color of law fits here. Civil Rights Division already raised an eyebrow. Across town, IA's Lieutenant Maria Santos followed paper cuts into arteries. Deputy Chief, we need to talk. Torres braced for impact. Go. Wade's file, 5 complaints in 11 months, excessive force allegation on a traffic stop, 3 aggressive contacts in minority neighborhoods, all unsubstantiated for lack of third-party corroboration. And an FTO eval 8 months ago flagging bias. Diversity training recommended, never scheduled. Torres closed her eyes. You can't unsee the checklist you ignored. The next morning, headlines went feral, DEA agent held at gunpoint while shopping. Hashtags bloomed, thorned and fragrant. Hashtag Justice for Samantha trended alongside its shadow twins. Rodriguez slid a tablet across the table. For more have come forward. Teen boy walking home. A Latino motorist with a broken alternator. A grandmother waiting on a curb. A young father pulled for a wide turn that turned into an hour. Samantha watched shaky phone videos of Wade's script deployed like software. You don't belong here. You look suspicious. She felt her jaw set. Let's expand. Not just Wade. Everyone he mentored, everyone who covered. The union issued its first volley by noon, Officer responded to a citizen report of suspicious activity. Subject obstructed lawful inquiry. DEA agent leveraged federal status to intimidate local officer. Report? Samantha asked, eyebrows lifting. Rodriguez shook his head. Dispatch logs say otherwise. Crickets at 2:15. Politicians triangulated. Commentators performed certainty. Strangers constructed new. Cited it in hearings. Training manuals across the country were rewritten with Denver as case study. Samantha's serial aisle had become a chapter in law school courses, a case file in civil rights history. But Samantha never forgot the truth beneath the statistics. Reform was not just percentages and charts. It was Isaiah walking home unafraid. It was cadets swearing an oath they could understand. It was Marcus Wade, broken yet speaking, showing rookies that shame could also teach. And it was an ordinary Saturday where buying cereal no longer meant facing the muzzle of prejudice. She closed her notebook on the anniversary with a final entry: justice isn't what the cameras capture. It's what lives after they're gone. If you believe accountability changes more than careers, if you believe it protects lives, type legacy in the comments. And tell me where you're watching from. Because reform doesn't stop at one city. It begins wherever we decide silence is no longer an option.